Hey, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to Hot Jobs that Hire Military. I'm John Snyder, and today we've got a special guest joining us, Greg Landa, who's the CEO of CES Power. And we've also got one of our recruiters, Amber Flores, an Air Force veteran and military spouse, who's looking for event technicians to work for CES Power. Before we get started, I want everyone to know that we're going to drop a link to the job announcements in the chat box so that you can take a look and apply there. And also, if you have any questions as we go through this, please drop the questions in the chat and we'll make sure and get them over to Greg and Amber so that they can answer your questions right here live and on the air. So Amber, can you tell us a little bit more about this position?
Yeah, absolutely. So in this event technician position, it is a role focused on HVAC and electrical power, and it's really from start to end for events. You could think concerts, football games, festivals, all those sorts of good things. And they're looking for people that are within a 40-minute drive to their locations. And so their locations are Orlando, Dallas, Sacramento, Palm Springs, Los Angeles, Newark, and CES is actually headquartered out of Memphis. So in Memphis also.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Amber. I appreciate that. So Greg, what I'd like first to ask you is if you'd introduce yourself and talk to us about CES Power and what it's like working there at your company.
Sure. Well, hey, first of all, thanks for having me on today, right? So exciting, always talk about the company and always looking for good folks to join our team, right? So we're focused on supplying power and HVAC to the event industry, right? Amber, I think, went through some detail there on the type of projects we do, right? There's never a dull moment in entertainment, right? And this is an exciting time to be involved in the entertainment industry as now there's really a resurgence, obviously, past, as we move past COVID. Everyone wants to go see live events, right? So they're back and we're looking for good quality folks.
Absolutely. And so I totally appreciate that. I've been one of those folks that's been out to a couple of concerts recently. So I really do appreciate the chance to get back and see some live events in person. And I really appreciate the effort that goes behind setting up all of those venues and getting them ready for the performers and getting them ready for the audience to come in and really have a fantastic experience. Can you talk to us, Greg, about what a day in the life of an event technician looks like?
Sure. So, primarily we supply power to obviously live events. So traditionally that power comes from two sources. One, generators, right? So obviously a lot of people in the military experience generators and we're in and around them as just part of setting up base camps and all of that. So anyone who has previous experience there, that'd be fantastic. In addition to that, there's a lot of electrical component that goes into the work, i.e. basically power and different electrical boxes that are utilized to distribute the power. So anyone who did kind of the more of the setup and maybe less mechanical, there's an aspect there. And then lastly, some of the events need HVAC, right? So heating and cooling, depending on the time of year. We do a lot of power and HVAC for tent structures, right? So people want to feel comfortable within those tent structures. So again, if you had HVAC experience within the military, we're the perfect place to come and utilize that. And then lastly, we use UPSs, right? Uninterruptible power supplies. Those are used in the military. And those are more for live broadcast, but we do have folks that need to have experience there, and we'd love to have that experience in our team.
It sounds like there's a lot of correlation between some of the experiences and technical skills that transitioning service members have to what you're looking for with event technicians. What are the typical size of teams that one of the technicians might be working on?
A small team could be 2, a large team could be 16 to 20, right? Music
Okay.
festivals tend to be much larger and more spread out, so i.e. more folks, right? So,
Yeah. Fantastic. What when you and your hiring managers are looking for people to fill these roles, what are some of the more distinguishing characteristics for the best performers that you want to bring into CES as an event technician?
No, I'm a firm believer, everything can be trained, right? I mean, certainly you don't have to have tons of electrical knowledge or mechanical knowledge on generators or even knowledge about HVAC. I think coming with the right attitude, right? Our skill set requires people to travel extensively, right? So that's very similar, I would think, to those folks that are in the military, right? Our projects are usually anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks. And they never seem to be local to our operations, or as much as we'd like them to be. Sometimes they are, right? But you get a chance to see the United States, and ultimately we have projects globally, a chance to see the world, right? Which I've always found to be exciting in my career and in my time with the company.
Well, that's a great point too. I mean, the folks that are in the military typically that have had experience traveling to the world, just not always some of the more scenic spots or metropolitan areas. So, you talked about a couple of days to 3 weeks. Someone that's coming in from the military into CES. Even though you want them close to one of those central locations where you have operations headquarters set up, talk a little bit for us the time frame for your average show when I would get, as an example, activated to work at a concert. What would my general timeline look like from the time that you or your operations manager calls up and says, "Hey, John, I need you to be on this project," to get into the operational facility and then traveling to wherever we're at and setting up for that event?
So a lot of our work is obviously scheduled, right? So as we follow, we work closely with the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, sporting events. Those schedules sometimes are released 2 years in advance, right? So you have a lot of understanding of what the schedule looks like for that type of activity. Again, don't know if we're going to necessarily be required for that, but there's a lot of pre-planning there. On the music side, right? You can see music festivals scheduled typically a year out, right? So you have some understanding of where you're going to go. Obviously, there's some flexibility in the schedule, right? Additional projects pop up. You may have been originally assigned to one project and then get moved to another. But and occasionally there's emergencies that come up where someone has to go somewhere. We're sending an individual, actually a veteran that works for us, is heading off to a project we're doing in Saudi Arabia, and it was a last minute thing that we had to take care of on the project, and so he's actually flying today to Saudi Arabia, so kind of less than 24 hours notice, so to speak. But that's not typical, right? Our schedules are usually known 7 to 14 days in advance, so there is some planning and some understanding. Obviously, during the summer or those months where the weather's better, we're extremely busy, so those are some of our kind of toughest and peak times. We tend to be a little slower just due to weather during the holidays, which is great because people can get a chance to spend quality time with their families, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. You've kind of touched on a couple of your major clients with CES, but can you give everybody a little bit more of an idea of the types of clients that you have? You talked about some professional sports organizations. Sure. Are you really tied to locations, or are you tied to a client and where they ask you to go?
Yeah, so tied to clients, right? So anyone that needs, basically, high-end, uninterruptible power. So, because of the number of people watching live television today, obviously any interruption of power that would cause a problem with that broadcast is unacceptable, right? So a lot of our clients are ensuring that there's no outage of power. So that's where the networks kind of fall into place. So we're following sports, but our clients are actually, Fox Sports and ESPN and CBS Sports, right? So we're following their. And then on the music side of things, we're dealing more with Live Nation and AEG, who are two of the largest concert promoters.
Yeah.
In the US, right? And again, that schedule is a little fluid, but is getting much more firmed up now that COVID and those restrictions are relaxing, right? So.
Yeah. So obviously, I appreciate that. I appreciate all of that, and those are the kind of the fun things, right? To
Yeah.
the sporting events, the concerts, and some of those big venue type of operations. But there's some other things that CES Power does, don't they, related to disaster response that could really speak to the service aspect that a lot of our transitioning service members have?
So, for years we were focused mostly on entertainment events, and then COVID came along, obviously, had an impact on those live events. So we pivoted, and we performed a lot of activities around kind of field hospitals, right, to treat people that had COVID. And they need the same level or even a higher level of service than what we give to the entertainment industry. Right now, you're talking about life safety. In addition to that, we also typically go out for certain hurricanes. We've supported the fires in California. Again, people need power and then also HVAC to support people in kind of man camps and tents. So again, very similar to probably what people were doing in the environment of what they may have been doing in the military, right? Just for a different client, right? And instead of being overseas, the projects are typically in North America, right? So.
Yeah, and you just kind of touched on a little bit the next question that I want to talk to you about. So, how do you think that a transitioning service member's military experience has prepared them to really get into and sink their teeth into this particular role and make them successful?
Sure. So, I mean, I think, there's no corollary of any other training institution that gives you the training the military does, right? I mean, it's pretty regimented as it needs to be. And so our experience with people that are transitioning from the military is they easily adapt and fit into our environment, right? And they typically join the military maybe because they were looking for, some amount of, or had some aptitude or want to experience the world, so to speak, and travel beyond obviously wanting to serve their country. So people who typically want to work for us who are not in the military want to see North America, and they want to go to different cities and visit and meet different people from different regions, right? So
yeah,
that part's pretty, I think, pretty similar. Right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I were to join CES, what does your veteran demographic look like already? Am I going to be around a bunch of folks who may have similar experiences with me, or?
So, I mean, we're obviously in our infant stages in terms of trying
Sure.
to, not from a company perspective, but really trying to heavily recruit from the military. But I would say maybe about 10% of our current staffing is our military veterans. And they've been with us a long time. And so I think, we'd obviously mentor them with those folks, right? Starting from day one, so they can kind of like, hey, what's a day in the life like for you? What are the things that you experience? How can you help me quickly advance within the company? There's not just one answer for who has come from the military, right? Not everyone came from, motor pool or setting up base camps. Some people were infantry, right? And they just came from that. And they just said, hey, listen, I can work hard and give me a shot, right? So I don't want to pigeonhole someone and say, well, because you didn't have previous electrical experience or HVAC experience, necessarily you shouldn't apply, because some of our best technicians came in with little experience, and now they're some of our most experienced folks. So we have no issue with providing training once you're on board with us, right? So that's just, because obviously the nature of what we do is constantly evolving, so additional training is required once you're on board, right?
Yeah. Tell me, if you wouldn't mind, just so we can talk to our audience here, what does the interview process with CES look like for people that are interested in applying, and really, what onboarding can they look forward to really get themselves prepared to be successful with you?
Sure. So, I mean, typically we'd have them interview with two or three of our current staff members, right? So, someone within, a couple folks within operations, maybe even someone from our sales group. And you may say, why sales? Because so many of our folks are kind of customer facing. It's important that we think that you're going to be a good fit. You're obviously representing the company and you're out there with some of these high profile clients. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that everyone's really, really comfortable with it. The other thing that we didn't talk about earlier, and we certainly have a need for, is we do a lot of our own transportation. So we are looking for additional people that are CDL drivers, right? And there's certainly that's applicable, right? There's a lot of people that drive heavy equipment within the military. That would be something that would fit right in with our group as well if someone wanted to kind of continue their career in that path as well. So I don't want to, there's just so many avenues here and so much opportunity. It's more almost, is this the lifestyle you want? And if it is, we'll find a place for you, right?
So for somebody that comes into CES as an event technician or as a CDL driver for the company, what does their career progression look like to you? Is there opportunity to grow past those entry roles?
So typically, what happens is over time, obviously, people want to get married and have a family and settle down, which is certainly something that we want to support. So at some point in time, people obviously aren't able to travel as much. In that case, we try to find them areas where they, primarily operations, where they can spend more time with their family, work out of a shop, help manage the operations and the logistics of moving the equipment from location to location. So they're kind of behind the scenes, if you would, as opposed to kind of front facing with the customers. And again, that's a long career. So, I mean, we really want you to come here and retire with us, if you would. The other thing I think that's important, right? Trying to talk a lot about skill set, but it's really your interest level, right? If you're a sports buff, this is the place for you. You'll be at the World Series. You'll be, at the NHL finals, right? So kind of an exciting thing to talk about, and in and around and be in that environment. Same thing for music. If you're a music lover, you're going to get a chance to experience all kinds of different types of music, right? So I think it's more important that you, again, embrace the lifestyle or the environment or the culture, and less so what your skill set may be when you come to us, because it'll probably be far different, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And so we just had a question come in from one of our viewers, and I don't want to put you on the spot if I know that this is something that is continuing to grow and be addressed across the country, but is there a requirement right now to work at CES Power to be vaccinated for COVID-19?
There is not, right? And I think, while we encourage people to get vaccinated, I think that's a personal choice. And I think, it's mixed as the country's mixed on the issue.
Sure. Yeah.
Plenty of clients that don't require it. There are some clients that do. And we obviously pick the right person for the right job and work around any issues or requirements that a client may have. I mean, beyond COVID, we have some people who say, I don't want to travel outside of North America. I don't want to have a passport. Okay, no problem. We have plenty of work inside the US. Other people say, send me abroad. I only want to be abroad. I've got my passport. I've got my visas. So again, we're trying to make the best fit for the employees and for our customers.
Fantastic, and I totally appreciate that point of view, as well as the understanding that there's going to be some additional vaccination requirements if you're one of those employees that wants to go abroad. So I appreciate that point of view. Thanks for answering that and kind of jumping on that hand grenade, Greg. It can be a little touchy these days to talk about that.
Sure, no problem. Yeah.
So you've been the CEO for CES Power since this last summer. You've got a very extensive background working for companies that provide HVAC and power services. As you near 6 months with CES Power, what really brings you to work each day?
Sure. So just a little bit of background on that. So I was the founder of basically the company that became CES Power. So while I've just been CEO 6 months, I've been around really since its inception.
Okay.
And it's been a 30-year career in the entertainment and event industry. And I can only speak from my personal experience and say it's been extremely rewarding and fulfilling. I've been to most of the major countries around the world in support of different entertainment events, and I've really enjoyed the travel and meeting the people and the culture and all of that. And obviously, a big music fan and love sports. Right, I'm not going to tell you who my favorite sports teams are, but I enjoy being in and around all that activity. And so I would encourage people that if you like that, if you have a passion for that, if you enjoy following sports or your favorite music artist, you'd love it here, right?
Yeah, so that brings up a great question. As a guy that when I was in the Army, one of the things that I had the chance to do for a few months, I wish it had been longer, but we brought in USO entertainers while we were deployed, and had to do, frankly, a lot of what you're talking about. Just it was in an austere location, so we didn't have the ability to bring in a fantastic company like CES to take care of all of that stuff. But so one of the things that I enjoyed was there was a lot of work that went into it in the beginning and post event to get ready and then tear down and move on to the next thing. But is there the opportunity for folks to enjoy the venue of what's going on when they're not working for setup and tear down and maintenance?
Sure, absolutely. Typically, obviously, we're there, in most cases a week prior to an event, right? So by the time we get to the event, if all's going well, right, we're just really in oversight mode, right? Just really monitoring the equipment. So you're in and around the crowd and the performers, right? So you're getting a chance to enjoy and listen to that music. We also try to schedule people so maybe that they can have a little downtime either in a given day or a full day, right? So they can enjoy it from kind of a spectator's perspective, right? Where we can, right? We want everyone to enjoy themselves. That's kind of one of the fringe benefits, so to speak, of being in this industry and environment.
I totally appreciate that, and I think that a lot of the folks that are watching right now appreciate that as well. And while you might be shy about just putting who your sports teams are out there, all I can say is that up here in the Pacific Northwest, we're pretty doggone excited to have the Seattle Kraken in the NHL this year. So hopefully they will be seen in the Stanley Cup Finals. Knock on wood here that's going to happen. So Amber, I do have a question for you. Do you have any final? Go ahead, Greg.
No, I just want to say I like all sports teams, right? I want everyone to get to their championships, right? So I'm a fan of all, right? But go ahead, John. No,
I completely appreciate that, but the best among equals is the Kraken. So I'm just going to leave that there. So Amber, any final words of advice for folks that are applying for the event technician role?
Final words of advice. Yeah, let's, always do the resume tailoring. I'm more than happy to answer questions, to connect with anybody that has additional questions. Feel free to drop those also, though. We are happy to chat about those. But tailor the resume. We can absolutely talk about how the skills that people have gained in the military are easily translate to CES Power and in the event technician position.
I really appreciate that. For everybody else that's watching this right now, or that watches the recorded version of it, please drop your questions. Continue to drop them into the chat, and our team here at Hire Military, in coordination with CES Power, will answer all of your questions. Make sure to check out the job announcement on the Hire Military website. And it's been great talking to all of you. Greg, do you have any final words for our group today?
just listen, thanks for giving me a chance to talk more about CES, and looking forward to good questions and hopefully a lot of great candidates.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us today, Greg, and thank you very much, Amber. It's been great. I hope everyone has as much fun as my dog is having in the background right now. Have a great day and a great weekend. Bye, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.